before we talk about the library, just reminding you of some other things to take a look at. So I'm sharing my screen. You can see the Blackboard show. Yes.
Yes.
By the way, I have added a video lecture to the week 11 course material. Under resources, I have put this rhetoric resources online. And there are a couple things that are worth looking at, but for this particular moment, the Rhetoric Society of America's list of rhetoric sources is what I wanted to do. And they have a lot of stuff here, including classical rhetoric texts, funding sources, resources for writers. What I wanted to, and bibliographies and encyclopedias, so that there are a lot of resources here that you might want to take advantage of. Silva Rhetorica is something I already listed myself. But what I wanted to take a look at was the journals. So there are a lot of journals that have some kind of relationship to rhetoric. And one way to start researching something is if you have a topic, going into the journal itself and just kind of seeing what kinds of things they have there. So I think like Rhetoric Review. Rhetoric Review is one of the Taylor and Francis online ones. And you need to usually get access via the library in order to get the full text, but you can see the whole tables of contents. And so it's just kind of interesting to take a look at kind of the topics they choose to publish, and sort of roaming around, you may be able to find something that's relevant to your topic. Who cares if Johnny writes with a pencil, or a hauntological historiography of materiality and composition rhetoric. So they do manage to get rhetoric in every title. And in fact, so rhetoric is a pretty a broad concept for those. Others, like I noticed you click on Rhetoric Society Quarterly. Oh, this also gives you the volumes. You can also, so that's the Rhetoric Society Review, which is the one Quarterly Journal of Speech. So that's another Taylor and Francis one, but it, instead of coming to the actual Taylor and Francis journal spot, it came to all their Taylor and Francis. And, so let's see, Maddie is doing who is not here tonight, but she's doing something on the Green New Deal. And You can just click on that. And you can see a whole lot of very recent articles about the Green New Deal. And climate just constructing the millennial other in the United States press coverage of the Green New Deal, which kind of gets at the issue she's trying to look at. So that's one of the things that I recommend that you do is take a look, become familiar with the journals and with the journals that would be relevant to the things you're interested in, not just for this assignment, but in general in graduate school. Another thing I recommend is becoming familiar with our professional organizations. So NCTE, National Council of Teachers of English, is the sort of umbrella entity. They have something called the Principles for Online Writing Instruction. And if you didn't know that, you could still guess it. So whatever your topic is, go to the professional organization and see if, what they as a professional organization have had to say about it. So as it turns out, they have a statement of principles of online writing instruction. And this is all their sort of the background to it. And then they have a position statement of principles and examples of effective practices. And although it says coming soon, in fact, they actually have it. They have an online writing instruction open resource. And this is a discussion board. They're trying to have people talk about these different things. And so that might be another place for you to start. Another thing to do is just see if they have any books. Oh, somehow I got into CCCC. Search entire site, okay. I think maybe we'll go back here. Oh, no, research. So within the professional organization, there are journals, there is learning material. We of course have conventions, and there are books. And as it turns out, there are several books they've published on online writing instruction. But assessing college common core composition writing. Note they have a topic on rhetoric. They have a book written by Scott Warnock. I don't know why my I apologize. My searching is not, my computer is not working very well. Um, I don't know why it's not coming up, but there's a book by Scott Warnock on teaching writing online. They also have things divided by groups, so you can see what their high school ones are. And if you find something that looks beneficial, then you can see if the library has it, and or see if it's available. Interestingly, the Warnock book here it is. You can actually get if you search for it, this is a PDF of the table of contents and the introduction. So, which I guess NCT has put up there. So, what I'm suggesting is the library is good, but there are also some other ways that you can get at things. But now I'm going to talk more about just the library searching. They kind of have hid the library on the UALR website. You can find it under academics down at the bottom. You can find it under students over here. And of course, you could search for Attenheimer Library. To use the library databases, it's one of the options right on the homepage of the library. And there is this thing called a quick search. And I don't know, Chrissy, if they've told you about this, but a lot of the librarians seem to really like it. But I have found that it's doesn't seem as, it seems confusing to me, and some things are not available that should be available. And so I tend to avoid it. But it is something you can do without logging in with a UALR ID. The rest you do have to log in with a UALR ID. But what I recommend is to start with databases. And unless you know exactly which database you want to use, click on the full list. Now there's 192 of them. The other day there was 191. Guess they got a new one. But that's not quite as overwhelming as it seems, because a whole bunch of them are owned by two separate companies, ProQuest and EBSCO. And if you get, and you can search all of the ProQuest databases together or all the EBSCO databases together. And also sometimes they actually even overlap. In addition, they've got these subject groupings up here. And they do not have writing as one of their topics. However, they do have applied communication and mass communication. I don't quite understand why they don't have writing. But basically, once you get into the right area, then you don't need to use those subject disciplines anyway. So they suggest communication and mass media complete. And that turns out to be an EBSCO database. Now, up at the top here, it says communication and mass media complete, choose databases. When you choose the databases, you find all the EBSCO databases. So I don't know how many there are there, but it looks like 60 or 70 of, well, maybe 50, I don't know. So I had picked communication and mass complete. There's also a communication source. And I always use Academic Search Complete, which is their sort of generic academic database. And often one can find what one needs there. MLA is also included. So let's say we're going to do something with Chrissy's topic, which is the sort of the rise of the podcast and the fall of the blog. So communication seems appropriate. MLA seems appropriate. Maybe library information science seems appropriate. Maybe the education ones. Maybe sociology. That's probably enough for now. No. So, Chrissy, have you tried any searching?
I have. I've found several articles. I have them saved to my email. I don't have specific titles written down at the moment. I just have them in a folder.
So I am probably going to recreate what you did. But so I was just interested in see what it has to say about blogs and podcasts. Let's just do it that way. And blog and podcast kind of doesn't seem to have anything that's related to it. And so it struck me that I probably needed to have a more rhetorical term, like maybe rhetoric. Or genre. I did give you that article that Carolyn Miller wrote about the genre of the blog. So that's a good starting point as well.
That's where that happens. The seminar paper.
I'm sorry, what?
That's where I got the idea for the seminar paper.
And that article itself, I think, is part of a larger book. I'm not really sure it was published, or it may have just been online, but it was all about blogs. And so the rest of that book might be, so this seemed kind of more maybe what I wanted. The rhetorical genre in the homemaking blog, the rhetoric of mom blogs, the homeless blog's negotiation of public meta genre, So definitely there's been some, and then the genres of the YouTube vlog. Would you say a vlog, a video log is closer to a blog or a podcast?
I think it's closer to a podcast.
So do you think it was like a moving between, a transitional kind of thing?
I think it was. Just from the preliminary research that I've done, you can see where the rise of the podcast begins and the fall of the blog begins. And they cross. There's an intersection. But I didn't see anything about blogs.
Situating the public social actions of blog posts. Interesting. Public communication. So there are 1,653 sources, which suggests it's necessary to narrow. So the way, there are multiple ways to narrow, but one of the ways to narrow is to choose a field. So the default is no field, which is the same as all text. But one way to narrow is to narrow it to the abstract, because if it's in the abstract, then that means it's a focused issue. Now, what they give you, the default order is always relevant. So it is more likely that the top things will be relevant to what you want. But if you narrow it to abstract, that means only things that have these in the abstract will work. And notice I'm using what's called Boolean search terms. I've set this up so it's rhetoric or genre, and then blog, and the two different things are and. You can also do this in one field with parentheses. So you could do blog or rather, I want blog and rhetoric or genre. That functions exactly the same as what I have with the two different lines. So it's narrowed it down to 681. Oh, this is interesting. Stylistic features of comment in the Arabic blogosphere. Now, I don't know if this is going to be in English or not. I think it is in English. Sometimes topics come up too much in some other language. So you can say that you only want English. I don't think and one thing might decide to get rid of the education ones. Because you're not that interested in using blogs as educational tools, although it certainly is useful. And you can just narrow it to just see what you get with genre. And you can narrow it more. Sometimes it makes it bigger, actually. If you pick one for a title, so that means it has to be about the blog in the thing. So when you start narrowing it to that, this is more kind of what you're interested in is, what is the sort of structure of blogs. You can then do the same thing. And there are much fewer things about podcasts. But here's a October 2020 article about the potentials and possibilities of podcasts. The true crime podcasts. So they're kind of focusing on it. I thought I had narrowed it to English, but so let's say you want to look at this potentials and possibilities of the podcasts, which is in an article in a journal called Teaching Sociology. So it is going to be a teaching tool. When you find an article that you really like, you can, what I call, mine it. So you can think about its subject terms. So the fact is that they use podcasts as a subject term. You can click on that, and DE is their subject term for that. And you could also have just changed the field to subject term. I don't know why it's changed to DE when it's there. But let's say you want to see about and rhetoric somewhere in the, let's say, the abstract. We end up with just one article with that search, but it might be a really valuable one. Podcasting as a space at the margins for subaltern counterpublics. Definitely can see it as space at the margins. Now, another way to find out subject terms, well, I think I'll skip that for now. Now, you may be depressed because you see here that this article is not available. It says check library catalog for this journal. That always means it's probably not in our library. No matches found. And but it says, also says get from another library. This is the link to the interlibrary loan. How many of you have used interlibrary loan? You have, Cindy?
I have used it.
How about the rest of you? Have you used interlibrary loan? Well, do not be afraid of it. Now you notice that when I clicked on it, it went in, and I had to click on my, put in my net ID, and it went right through. So it creates, the first time you do it, you create an account within UALR's library using your net ID, and then it exists. And so you click on that and it's automatically populated. So the article was in something called Popular Communication, a 2019 date. And so all of this is totally populated. The only thing you have to add is your date. I think they require that one. Let's say by then. my name, and if you want to put out your phone number. And then you just submit the request. And so this is my profile. So these are all the requests I've done, and it just keeps it there. I made a request just the other day. I think it was actually yesterday. Yes, I requested this yesterday in my 3316 class because they're doing something about, writing about problems at ULR. And so I requested this yesterday, and they gave it to me either last night or today. And it is available to view until for a month. And there's also a history of everything you've ever requested. And so the link can expire, but you can duplicate it and get it again. So this is one of the easiest ways to get articles, because the other library will just send a PDF, and then of course you just download it to your own computer, which we don't need to do right now. The same thing works with books, and they will even mail books to you. I think, well, before the pandemic, it was a 25-mile radius. If you were outside the 25-mile radius, it may be different now. Whoops. One other thing to point out is when you find an article that you like, I think Cindy said she emailed it to herself. Somebody said they emailed it to themselves. You can definitely do that. You can also add it to a folder. And then up here, all right, now it's added. Up here, this little folder gets opened. And now, this is a folder for all the EBSCO materials. And it says here, to store these items in the folder for a future session, sign in my EBSCO host. And you have to have a password and everything, which is why I can only do this on my home computer, because I can't remember the password. But you can see here all the things I've saved, and you can create folders within the folder. These are just topics that mostly students have done, and I've tried to collect things. Oh, here's an online writing instruction topic. Oh, yeah, I would love someday to do a study of note taking with online students. So that's why I was doing that. Gender and technical writing, rhetoric and identity. These are just things people had looked at. There's also a citation creator within all of these databases, and you can definitely use them, but you should be aware that sometimes they have errors. I read somewhere they were described as drafts. For example, MLA was updated in 2016 or 2017, and it took until just about a year ago that they had the new MLA listed. And the APA is often wrong in terms of titles and things. You can export to some kind of software. You can save to your computer. You can print, which can also be a saving. You can save it to, you know, print it to a PDF and then save it. And you can save it into your Google Drive if you use Google Drive as a storage place. Let me stop there. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I missed what you said about the database when you were talking about logging in to your UALR account. Do you have to be logged in to access the EBSCO? I've done it before, but I know it's some type of process. So I got lost in that
At
part. How you
some
got
point in the process, it will ask you to log in, put in your net ID.
okay.
And because I'm doing this from home and I already had done it, I think I must have already logged in. But at some process, and you just put in your net ID just like any other kind of thing. And the same thing, you know, like for ULR email. And then if you have an article and you want, so this EBSCO host folder, that would be a separate logging in. You create an account in EBSCO.
Okay, and you got there through the Rhetoric Resources Online?
No, I got here by looking at the library.
Okay.
So I just go to ULR. Ottenheimer Library. I could also just search for Ottenheimer Library. Go into the databases. I click on databases A through Z. And see what I get. So let's say we're working on, well, so the recorded one that I did last week, I went through a search on Marlowe's topic, which is psychotherapy and rhetoric. And so you should definitely take a look and see how I went through that. I also did another search using the newspapers. If some people have a, you know, if newspaper, like Maddie is doing a, you know, wants to see how people are, basically the rhetoric of the Green New Deal or New Green Deal, I'm not sure. And so it struck me that the newspapers would be one interesting source. And, you know, so I went here and we looked at news and looked at the US News Stream, which is actually a ProQuest database, and that allows you to get most of the major newspapers. The newspaper source is an EBSCO, but it doesn't seem to have nearly the coverage that US News Stream does. So I'm going to stay within EBSCO just so that you can get a little more familiar with it. Like when I was looking for Marlowe's topic, I specifically clicked the psychology sources along with the communication sources. One of the key things about any kind of searching is you have to be sort of willing to put a lot of time into it and be flexible and keep trying. Also, be able to notice when you see things. But so let's say we're doing, well, actually, I guess I was thinking of Christine's topic, which was, well, no, I think we could do yours. So let's do Reed's topic, which is kind of like ethos and technical writing is a broad category. One of the key things about doing a search is trying to figure out what the search terms are. So I might use the business and the communication and education. And MLA, it's probably an MLA. The dissertation links are often a good place, although they're often included. All right. So one of the ways of trying to figure out search terms is by, trial and error, looking for an article that finds that looks like it's promising, and then using their subject terms. Another way is to look at the subject terms that have been defined by the database. So up here, this second column is called subjects. In other databases, it might be called thesaurus. In fact, they call it subjects, but so what happens is each of the databases that I had clicked on calls it something slightly different. Most of them are works as subjects, terms, thesaurus, communications thesaurus, and academic search complete. So let's use that. And so we're interested in technical writing. And it contains technical writing in the term. And you click on that and you get a whole bunch of subject terms that they use. So you click on one of these and note that there is a scope note, and then there is a broader term, and then there are narrower terms, and then there are related terms. And so you might find one of these other subjects are more appropriate. Or when you did technical writing, you might notice that there were other ones that included technical writing. And then let's say you want technical writing study in teaching universities and colleges, they tell you which one to use. So if you wanted to look at how do they teach you to become, to adapt to a new technical situation, maybe technical writing education in universities and colleges might be more appropriate. If you want to look more at just technical editing, then technical editing might be more appropriate. Let's see what they do for ethos. So there's ethos, the Greek word, and this is Greek etymology. I don't think that's what we want, but ethos in rhetoric is what we want. And so they tell you that a larger term, a broader term is persuasion. They don't give you a more narrow term. So ethos, rhetoric as a subject field. They are subject terms. Now, as it turns out that that's too narrow a search. But it does get it. Actually, Christine Hall, I think, she was interested in sophism in technical writing. So I think I'll probably send this to her. I did a sort of similar search for Marlowe, and one of the things I finally found an article, and it turned out that using Aristotle as the search term was the one that worked better than just the term rhetoric. So this was too narrow, although teaching rhetoric across the curriculum in the professional sophists or SMEs means subject matter experts. So, you know, do you remember the sophist said you have to know everything to be a writer? I think that's what this is getting at. You know, a big issue in businesses and tech organizations is, do you hire somebody who is a writer, who somehow works with these people who know the content, or do you somehow find somebody who knows everything and writes? You know, it's just kind of an interesting issue. But so it appears that that is too narrow, although those articles might certainly be good. So we'll just start broader. And it's still pretty narrow. There are only 33 things. However, you do in fact find ethos and technical discourse. So people have been starting to talk about it. Now, this is not exactly your topic, but let's say this were an article that was useful. This is another way to find something. So here's a journal, and everything that is hyperlinked on this text, on this page, can be searched itself. So you can click on the journal itself and then search. Now, Technical Communication Quarterly, as it turns out, is one of the major journals in the technical communication area. And so it should become a journal that you become familiar with over time. But let's say you want to see, have they ever, oh wait, before I do that, notice on the right here, all the issues and articles are right there. And then also over here, so this is another one of those Taylor and Francis journals. Remember, I started by saying you could just go to one of the publication journals and search it within there. The information about the journal is useful information to find. Perhaps the most important thing to find out is this, where it says full text. So it says that full text is available from 95 to the present with an 18-month delay. That 18-month delay is also called a wall or an embargo. And it has to do with how the contract between the journal publication and the EBSCO people and us probably too. I mean, the journals don't want to give full access freely. So the databases have to pay for the full access. And what the journals tend to do is they limit full access for the recent things. And that's why you sometimes have to go to interlibrary alone for more recent things, or well, that would be the way to go to a library that actually subscribes to it. So therefore they are paying for it and they can get it to you. A lot of students like to use JSTOR as for searching. JSTOR is, it stands for journal storage, and it is not really a database. It's a storage place. It doesn't have quite as much tools in terms of searching, but most importantly, their embargo is very long. It's 5-6 years usually for their things, because it was designed as a place to store things. And so, that's just what their business model is. And so it's much better to use some other database. And a lot of times when it says get full version, the ULR library will actually send you to JSTOR. So you can search within this publication. You can just see if they've ever talked about ethos. And let's just see if there's any titles, articles with title, ethos in the title. 5. And this is more about basically analyzing certain types of rhetoric. If you do it on the abstract, should be a few more. And if you just do all text, you'll get 149. Now, I mentioned in passing that the default structure is relevance, but you can change things to chronological to see what's the newest. That gets you to 2019, probably 18 months away. Or let's say you want to see what the oldest is. So the oldest is 94. That's before they said they covered. And this is one that actually came up at the top when I had didn't say it in the title. There are other ways to narrow. So I think what this is saying is that they're all an education source. Not really sure. Let's say I change it to all databases. All right, so that for some reason I had narrowed it to just the education ones. I think that probably was telling you that it's that Technical Communication Quarterly is indexed in the education databases. That's another thing to find out. So these, each of the databases may have slightly different publications. Once you find publications that you tend to use, it's good to find which database does. You can narrow it to time. Let's say you only want from 2014 to 2019. You can narrow it to scholarly and peer reviewed. And you can narrow it to full text, but I don't recommend you do that because, as I said, it's easy to get things from interlibrary loan. Okay. Let me stop and ask if there's a question. Does anybody have something they'd like to find? Michelle? Michelle?
I'm here. I couldn't get my mic to work. Hey, I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah. Have you decided on a topic?
I saw your email. Not yet, but I am going to decide on one tonight because
Okay.
I'm going to start. No, well,
Had you decided on a topic, I would have helped you look for something. So,
well, I haven't just yet. So that's why I said I'm going to tonight, and then I'm going to send it to you to see your suggestion on it. I have all day Friday, and I'm going to work on the actual paper because we're out of school and I'm off, and my daughter has to go to school. So I'll actually get to have some like the whole day to myself. But yes, I was going to send you an idea for it here after, but I was listening to you, but I was going to send you an idea for it to see what you think. Yes, sorry, I couldn't get my mic to work.
All right. So I mentioned that a lot of these journals are also part of ProQuest. So, I think ProQuest has a prettier interface than the EBSCO ones, but basically it's the same thing. They just use slightly different terminology. So if you want to see what other databases are in ProQuest, you can go to, you either pick something that turns out to be a ProQuest database, or you can click on ProQuest Central, which is a collection of databases. So, so this list here is the list of ProQuest databases. and they maybe kind of have a little bit more humanities-based stuff than EBSCO, but not necessarily. Notice they have the dissertations and theses at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. So you could actually, if you write a thesis or a dissertation, it actually is posted there and you can search within it. And they also, ProQuest has a lot of the ebooks that, the library is more and more getting ebooks rather than hard, actual physical books. Some things are in both EBSCO and ProQuest because they're actually in the public domain. The ERIC database, that's from the U.S. Department of Education, and Medline is from the I think it's the National Institutes of Health. And sometimes they change, like this ABI Inform, that's a business one. It used to be with EBSCO and now it's with ProQuest. But in any case, ProQuest Central, they have all these discipline-specific ones that they have combined into ProQuest Central. And they also have these news streams. So they have different nationalities, military. And then they have these other, here their STEM one for some reason is separate from the other. Oh, these are, oh no. I'm not quite sure why some of these are outside of ProQuest Central. But so let's say we're going to do search in ProQuest Central for so I did a totally open search. And note that what happened is I used their two different boxes, but now they've shown me what the Boolean search is, blog and genre. Well, 80,000 results is really too much. But you can see easily here the ways to narrow it. So 11,000 scholarly journals, 7,000 dissertations, and dates. It's hard to imagine that something in 1882 would cover blogs, but maybe there was some use of that word. So we clearly need to modify that search to make it a little bit more narrow. One of the nice things about the ProQuest searches is they have this anywhere except full text. And what that means is all these different fields are possible. So you could do the title and the abstract and the subject terms, but you're not doing full text. You could do anywhere, but anywhere except full text. So let's see what happens when we narrow there. And that gets us down to 1,600. And let's say we do textual similarities and differences in digital genres, the blog and the website. Oh, that'd be very interesting. I wonder if it's in French. It is in French, but it has a translation application within it. So I was going to say you can limit it to English, but maybe you don't want to. You might still get things. but let's say you want to narrow it to scholarly journals. And let's say which got it down to 1995. And maybe you don't want to limit the ages. Toward an empirically generated typology of weblog genres. That sounds really useful. Okay, where's this? I'm surprised this. So one of the things that you can do this in EBSCO as well is the searches. I mean, we all do this. We start searching around and we don't remember where we've been. So this was a possibility of something you can do in the EBSCO searches as well. You click on recent searches, and so you see the different searches and the results. And you can save these, and again, you save it. And I have an account, but I can't remember what it is. And they ask you to create an account and you can save it. Or you can click over here under actions. Again, the EBSCO ones have the exact same thing. You can save the search, you can delete it, you can modify it, you can create an alert, which means that if a new publication comes that fits into this search, it will email you or contact you. And you can actually get a link for the search so that you can keep it. You can export all searches. There's another way to remember. So you export it to PDF. You don't have to remember what your folder is. And in ProQuest Central, in order to get the search terms, you have to be under advanced search, and there's your thesaurus. So let's just see if blog is so they actually do have blogging, blogs, and weblogs. A broader term is commuter-mediated communication. So that might be an interesting topic. I'm not sure if Chrissy's still here, but computer-mediated communication.
I'm here.
Oh, are you? I only can see. So computer-mediated communication and blog and podcast might be something. And what they're telling you is basically you use blog for all these different terms. And here it would be the related terms, which are broader. And this little box means that there's a notes. They also give you tips. So ProQuest has some very good instructional material. I personally am always avoid instructional material and do it all by trial and error. And then I realized that there's some kind of instruction I could have figured it out much faster, but whatever. A useful concept is this idea of wildcards and truncation. So let's say you have a word you know, you want blog and blogging and weblogs. Unfortunately, those all include blog, but let's say you want write and writing. You can do a WRIT and then asterisk, and then the asterisk means that it'll find anything with that root. It can also be if there is different spelling. So like British spelling is for color is COLOUR. And there are some examples there. It's hard to believe there's all this stuff, all these different languages in here. So that anywhere except full text gave us 1600. Let's modify that search. Now main subject, that's maybe too limited. Well, that gets you down to 66. So this empirically generated typology of weblog genres keeps coming up. I think that let's see what happens when we look for what they use for rhetoric. They use rhetoric. So their related terms are debates, discourse analysis, language, speech, writing. And they don't tell us what's broader or narrower, so I guess we use rhetoric. So let's say we do blog and rhetoric. Let's go back to anywhere except full text. Too broad. Let's try the abstract. That gets you down to a more a narrow. But let's say you want it to be in the title, meaning that the article really is about blogs and nothing else. So that just gets you down to a really good, small enough group to look at. Or so podcasts and rhetoric in the title. This is just about. So that doesn't help us too much. What happens if you just say podcast? And there looks like a lot of trade journals and magazines. So we need to narrow this to scholarly journals, because podcasts are now the new marketing tool. This is more analytical about podcasts. And it seems to mainly have to do with education, which, and in a lot of different languages. Podcast Advocacy Field Report. So this is about a person launching a podcast. Interesting.
Dr. Matson,
Mm-hmm.
can we go back up a little bit? There was one, it was trends in podcast technology or downloads or something like that.
Yeah. This one?
Trends in podcast download frequency. Okay. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah. So this was an education. Are you interested in as educational tool?
No, not so much. I'm looking more at the how the trend in the podcast gave way to the trend, or I'm sorry, of the blog gave way to the trend in the podcast mainly.
Right. Wonder if we can instead of using ProQuest Central, oh, I know what. So we're in the databases and we're using ProQuest Central, but we don't have to use all of ProQuest Central. Whoops. It did the opposite of what I wanted it to do. How about I just delete the education ones? And the health. Telecommunications, we're to get rid of all of it. I think for some reason genre works better than rhetoric. So aha. how podcasting is changing the audio storytelling genre. The post-2014 podcast resurgence, the growth in, so this is a lot about the history of it, and which is kind of what you're wanting to do. And it's pretty new, it's just 2016. So one of the
This is awesome. I'm sorry, I had it on mute because my husband's working with an air compressor in the garage. So,
so this is something that's really relevant. And once you find something that's so relevant, it was from Advanced Technologies and Aerospace Database. Interesting. And it says you can get the full text. Well, you can email. I'm going to email you it.
oh, I wrote it down so I could look it back up, but that would work too.
Include bibliographic. What's your email? It's it's not Jones, right?
X Kemper,
Yeah. CS?
X,
Oh, X.
Kemper at UALR. Thank you.
So it says you can get full text. And notice how it took you out of ProQuest. And apparently they just have some kind of connection to it. You can open it in Acrobat, download it. It's from a university in Australia, but since it's relatively recent, one of its best things in it are its resources. So as you read it, it looks like they actually looked at a whole lot of podcasts, but also they've included a lot of interesting stuff about podcasts. So examining the motives of podcast users. So a lot of this motivations, why pod, further explorations into the, and all you need to do is put these titles into one of these search tools and see if and try to locate it. You can also do it in you could Google, but here's one: podcasting as radio's revival. So they're thinking about it as connecting to different. Really good source.
We think that SiriusXM started the podcasting.
Really?
I think that it had something to do with it. I'm going to look into it, but I've always thought that's where podcasting started.
Huh. Yeah, that would be really interesting. So I wonder why they say post 24. I wonder what happened in 2014.
We're going to have to find out.
And the Radio Journal. My computer. So you can do the same thing with ProQuest databases as you can with EBSCO. You find a journal and just Um, what? Whoops. So there is quite a lot in this journal itself.
Oh, wow.
Um, so, this is a really good resource.
And it's just called the Radio Journal?
Yep. So the way to do it is you find something that's good and then you click on the hot link within the source. It looks like that April 2016 issue was all about podcasting.
Awesome.
Okay, so